You know, what I wanted to cover is basically, if you read the press and the books in the US today, there's generally a story that's emerging, which is you know, what I wanted to cover is basically, if you read the press and the books in the US today, there's generally a story that's emerging, which is China has peaked. Its economy is now heading for a longer term decline, which of course I don't agree with at all, because Americans know nothing about China.
That can be an interesting question, right? So what's the logic behind? Okay,
Well, there is
peaking
no
Chinese-
logic.
Yeah,
Either
it's
one of the
logic.
points, there's no
Yeah.
logic. Because what I've done in the podcast I've done is basically said what Americans don't understand is the power of the Chinese model. So one is the power of a single party system as opposed to an adversarial two-party system,
Right.
which means you get this all day and
Right.
no results.
Right.
You also elect a president from a new party and you get this, a lot of wasted energy, whereas in China you get fine tuning, but always within the bounds of the longer term direction.
Right, right.
So it's just a much more powerful
Yes,
model.
yes.
And then the second strength of the China model is the best and the brightest aspire to government service. So the talent in the government in China is dramatically, Americans hate to hear me say this, but it's just so true, dramatically better than it is in the US.
Yeah.
And then the third one goes back to what I would call the civilization state of China, which gives you a unity of purpose and an alignment. So if you realize that 92% of the Chinese are Han and grew up with Confucian values, and you compare that to the US, we have so many different ethnic groups,
Right.
and we have the polarity of very different socioeconomic groups. And so you wind up with what we have today, which is a very divisive
Right.
interactive model. And then the fourth thing I point out that's a strength is just work ethic. The Chinese work harder. Now part of it is related to the Industrial Revolution and when people hit their high income period.
Right.
So the U.S. has been in its high income period really after World War II. So starting in the 50s, it's been a pretty wealthy environment in the sense of housing, cars, and hours of work that are very reasonable. Whereas if you go back to the 19th century, you had a lot more of the kind of energy that you see in China today.
Yeah.
Because you had your Industrial Revolution.